Okay, so you guys have already talked about domain and range before. So we already know that domain means the x values of a function, and that range, we know that means y. But on all of the graphs that you have done so far, or the graphs or the tables or the list of points, it's just been individual points. It hasn't been connected by a line. Okay, so we have to talk about, well, if it's a connected graph and not just a bunch of points, how do you write the domain and range of that? So basically what we're going to be doing, since it's connected, you can't list out every single number that is on this line because there's an infinite number of points that are on this line. So instead of listing them all out, what we're going to do is we're going to say that the graph is between the two numbers. We're going to say, oh, it starts at this point and then it goes all the way until this point. So to write that down and to figure it out, the first step is we're going to draw the box. So we need to figure out where are the limits of our graph. How far over on our graph does it go? So we're going to draw a box. Now what that means is that you're going to draw a box, the tightest box you can make around this graph. So obviously the box is going to touch your graph a little bit, at least at one point. So I'm going to draw, it started here, so this is me drawing my box. I'm going to go over. Now the graph stops here, so I'm not going to keep drawing the box if the graph stopped. So I'm going to go straight up. Oh, the graph stopped going up there. I'm not going to continue to go if the graph stopped. So now I'm just going to go back over and complete this nice little box. Okay. So every graph should have a box, and you should be making it nice and tight. There's no extra boxes leaving space. Like the graph should touch the box. Okay. So I'm going to redraw my box down here. It's the same box, just on a different slide. So here we go. If I want to write out the domain, which we said the domain was the x numbers, you're always going to set it up like this, where you're going to have blank and then these little symbols with an x in the middle, okay? Because we want to say that the x numbers are between these two specific x numbers. So the first number I'm supposed to write is the number from the left side of the box. So I'm going to write that underneath, okay? So we're saying, oh, it starts on the left side of the box, which is over here. Okay, and then it's all the numbers that start at the left and then end at the right side of the box. So I'm going to write right there and the right over there. Okay, so on my graph, I'm either going to have an open circle or a closed circle. On my graph, I see that is a closed circle. So a closed circle is a circle that's filled in, and an open circle is going to look like with a white space in the middle. There's nothing colored in there. Ours is colored in, so ours is a closed circle. So when it's an open circle, you're going to leave the symbol alone, because that means it doesn't actually start at that point. It starts like right after that point. That is what this means. A closed circle means it starts at this number. So we have to say it's less than or equal to that number. It could be that number. Open circle means it's not actually that number. It just starts after it. Okay. So we'll practice. We'll practice after we do range. So same thing for range, except for the range, we know that's the y number. So that means we're talking about a different part of the box. We're not talking about left and right because those are x numbers. We're talking about y numbers, so that means we're going to talk about the bottom and the top of our graph. So we're going to say, oh, well, the bottom of the graph, the lowest point of the graph, starts down here. And then the top of the graph is going to be up here. Now the same thing, sometimes you have an open or a closed circle. An open is just not filled in, closed is filled in, it's colored in, okay? And it still means an open circle would mean, oh, not equal to, that it starts right after that number, not actually at that number. And a closed circle means, yes, we include that number. It starts there. It doesn't start after there, okay? So we're going to do a practice one. So the actual domain of this graph, I'm leaving, every time I do it, I set it up just like this. So my left side of the graph, well, what number was it actually on? What x number? Well, if I look at the x-axis right there, it says -4. So I know my graph starts at -4. Now, does it actually start at -4, or does it start right after -4? Well, was this an open or closed circle? I can see it's colored in. That means it's closed. So for my symbol, I have to put the equal sign so that we know, yes, it includes -4. It's not just after -4. Okay, on my right side, well, here's the point on the right over there. What was the x number? Well, look at the x-axis. What does it say? It says 2. So I'm going to put that over here where our number on the right goes. And was this an open or closed circle? Does it go all the way up and include that point, or does it not include 2? Ours is a closed circle, so that's going to include 2. So we put the extra line. So this is my domain. That means that my graph starts at -4 and actually includes -4 and goes on every single number all the way up to +2 and includes +2 and then stops. So these are all the numbers, the x numbers that my graph goes through. For my range, I set up the same thing, blank, less than, but now I'm going to put y less than blank. And these numbers come from a different place because we're talking about range, the y numbers. So bottom and top. If I look at my point at the bottom of this graph, it's this point again over here. Well, what's the y number that this point goes through? Well, I got to look at the y-axis. It's going to be this number, -1. Now, did it actually include -1 because it's a closed circle, or is it an open circle so it would start after -1? Well, I can see that's still a closed circle. So I'm going to include it. I'm going to put the extra line, or equal to. For my number on the top, well, let's see, where's the point at the top? Is over here. And I'm going to look, well, what's the y number? Well, it's right there at +2. And was this an open or closed circle? I can see it's filled in, so it's a closed circle. So it's going to include that. So I put the extra or equal line, and this is my range. So this tells me, oh, my graph starts at -1 and actually includes -1, and it goes on all the y numbers all the way up to +2 and includes +2. So you're going to go do the guided practice. If you need to watch this video again, that's fine. And then you're going to do practice.